you raise your heavy weapon? No, I did not. I'll put it this way too, I mean...
Standing over them with and guarding them, I was not on my role in it.
I believe what the sentence that he will get will be worse than...
I didn't know what he was doing.
Robert Fratto was accused of hiring a hitman to murder his wife. His plan fell apart completely once he got caught.
Herman Hospital last night. Investigators were combing the garage of her home in Atascocita. Neighbors told investigators that they heard the first,
Followed by a scream and then another second quick. And then the suspect was seen hiding by a tree. The vehicle came around the corner and picked him up and left.
Investigators, though, found no evidence of robbery or assault or any other motive for. That's when they began questioning Bob Fratta, the victim's estranged husband. Relatives say Fratta and his wife had been in a bitter battle over custody of their 3 children for 2.5 years.
Did you raise your heavy weapon? No, I did not. I'll put it this way too, I mean, if anything happens to her, that's one of the things I was thinking about on the way over here is like, what the hell am I going to do now? I mean, me battling for custody was also relying on her to be paying me child support of $600 to $700 a month.
But Fratto didn't seem shocked when he was proven guilty. Perhaps he had already accepted his fate by that point.
We, the jury, find the defendant Robin Allen Fratta guilty of capital as charged in the indictment signed by the foreman. Does either side wish to have the jury poll? Seated. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, as I...
A Tennessee man has been sentenced to life in prison for fatally stabbing his diner coworker after she told him she just wanted to be friends. Gabriel Enrique Tercios was found guilty of first-degree murder in the slaying of 19-year-old Savannah Burford, who was stabbed in the parking lot of the Sunliner Diner in Pigeon Forge. Burford's mother, Julia Cutter, witnessed the incident in horror as she had come to pick up her daughter from the restaurant. The jury took less than an hour to reach their verdict.
This job was giving her the confidence to talk to people. And that's why I was starting to find jobs for her to sing. She couldn't even scream when that guy was stabbing her. That's how fast he did it. I didn't know what he was doing.
Cutter rushed to try to help her daughter after Tercios fled the scene, but it was too late and she passed away due to excessive bleeding from the wound. State prosecutors argued during the 2-day trial that Tercios had flown into a jealous rage after he confided in Burford about his crush on her, and she rejected his romantic advances. The prosecution claimed that Tercios was fully functional when he took her life days later. However, his defense team argued that he had acted during a moment of insanity.
Horrendous nature of this homicide far outweighs any benefit he gets due to age or lack of criminal history. He took a life.
During interrogation, Tercios confessed that he had contemplated taking the life of his coworker for days and finally carried out the plan because he believed the devil had compelled him to do it. Gabriel Enrique Tercios was sentenced to life in prison for the incident. Judge Judy always looks like she's seen it all. However, there are moments when a plaintiff says something so unbelievable that even she is left speechless.
She opened her Tupperware cupboard and forced all of her Tupperware on me like that.
When a plaintiff tells her that the defendant threw not just one.
When the plaintiff claims that the defendant threw not just 1 or 2 but all of the Tupperware on her, not at her, Judge Judy calmly responds, "She didn't throw all of her Tupperware on you."
She's leaning her whole body into me, pointing her finger in my face. How dare you? Don't you even dare. Shame on you. That's it. I want you out of here. And she hit my head with her finger. She had all of her weight on me.
The plaintiff insists that it happened and gives a live demonstration, complete with an aggressive tone, a lot of finger pointing, and scrunched up faces. At least the Tupperware wasn't full of food or the motions from earlier on this list. 4 years ago, a shocking incident occurred when a friend shot her friend. Now, with a conviction in place, let's go to the emotionally charged courtroom.
No punishment that you receive will ever compare to the pain and torture that you have inflicted upon us. There is no real justice, only incarceration for a sick individual monster who needs to be isolated in a cell, not able to see or hear or touch or come in contact with anyone.
The father and sister of Cabria Arnold finally had the chance to speak to Gabriella Brantley, the woman convicted of Cabria's shocking death in November 2019. Cabria, just 20 years old, had a bright future ahead as a budding nurse and softball star. She was tragically shot multiple times. Police, prosecutors, and the jury found Brantley, Arnold's friend, guilty of the shooting, which was apparently over a man. During the sentencing, Brantley remained defiant, claiming she was not guilty.
Here I stand, labeled the bad guy, a monster, a cold-blooded, when the truth is that's not who I am at all. The person who actually plotted, planned, and executed Cabria is still out there.
Judge Sharon Walker had the final say in this ordeal, sentencing Brantley to life in prison without parole.
All over a man who didn't love you. Darnell didn't love you or Cabria. As far as the court is concerned, the jury got it right, and you're going to get every day that you deserve.
The judge had strong words, and it was a very emotional time for the family. Even the prosecutor was surprised, as the sentencing report included a new charge, a misdemeanor for assault committed by Brantley while in the Wayne County Jail. Hussein Braveheart was sentenced to 54 months in prison for his crime. El Shafi El Sheikh, an ISIS terrorist and part of the group known as the Beatles, was sentenced in a U.S. court to 8 consecutive life terms in prison. He was convicted of torturing and killing 4 American nationals, participating in a hostage-taking conspiracy, and supporting a terrorist organization.
I was not standing over them with a and guarding them. Though my role in it has not much to do with the execution or the filming or the burials or anything to do with this. My role was just logistics. Get an email from this guy, get an email from that guy, ask a question to this guy, ask a question to that guy.
Diane Foley, the mother of James Foley, one of the victims of the Beatles, spoke at a news conference after the sentence was handed down. She said, "With today's verdict, we finally have a bit of justice.
We families lost our loved ones forever. It's a tragic cycle of violence and heartbreak for all involved.
I feel some pity for him, to be honest. He hurt in such a cruel way. I mean, I just have a lot of pity for him."
El Shafi El Sheikh and another former Beatle, Alexander Coté, were captured by a Kurdish militia in Syria in January 2018 and handed over to U.S. forces in Iraq. They were flown to the U.S. in 2020 to face trial. Coté, 38 years old, pleaded guilty in 2021 and was sentenced to life in prison.
You know, at first I wanted him hung from a tree, going to Iraq. I think the most suffering for him is having everyone know that he's guilty, and he has to sit for 23.5 hours a day in a horrible cell.
Judge T.S. Ellis, delivering the sentence in the U.S. District Court in Alexandria, Virginia, described El Sheikh's actions as horrific, barbaric, brutal, callous, and criminal. El Sheikh, wearing large glasses, a black face mask, and a dark green prison jumpsuit labeled Alexandria inmate, did not visibly react and declined to speak with the court. The trial of the former British national, which included emotional testimonies from former hostages and relatives of the slain Americans, was one of the most significant prosecutions of an ISIS terrorist in the U.S. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours at the end of a 2-week trial before finding El Sheikh guilty of his role in the deaths of 4 Americans, journalists James Foley and Stephen Sotloff, and aid workers Peter Kassig and Kayla Muller. The death penalty was removed as an option as part of a deal between the U.S. and the U.K. to have the case tried in the U.S. Richard Smith, head of the London Police Counter-Terrorism Unit, welcomed the sentence, stating that El Sheikh and Coté believed they were beyond the reach of the law, but were proven wrong. Diane Foley, the mother of James Foley, addressed El Sheikh and the court, noting it was the 8th anniversary of her son's death. Carl Mueller, Kayla's father, welcomed the life sentence for El Sheikh, saying, "I think the punishment fits the crime," and commented that El Sheikh would spend the rest of his life in a cell.
I believe what the sentence that he will get will be worse than he's going to spend the rest of his living days in a cell.
Justin Nogin Sullivan, 21, from Morganton, North Carolina, was sentenced to life in prison for attempting to commit an act of terrorism transcending national boundaries in support of ISIS. Sullivan pleaded guilty to the charge in 2016. Court documents reveal that he downloaded violent ISIS attacks, such as beheadings, and stored them on his laptop. Sullivan openly supported ISIS at home and destroyed his parents' religious items. His parents, shocked by the allegations, were present in court. Sullivan was arrested after the FBI found a silencer in his home, which he had asked an undercover FBI operative to build for him. Although it's unclear how much of a threat Sullivan posed, he had expressed desires to kill up to 1,000 people. Sullivan came to the FBI's attention when his father called 911 to report him for destroying religious items with gasoline.
Into his mind that he can destroy all our religious something, I don't know if it's ISIS or what, but I come home and he's destroying Buddhists and figurines and burning stuff in the house.
This is your son?
Yeah.
Sullivan pleaded guilty to federal terrorism charges in 2016. In 2017, he was sentenced to life in federal prison on those charges. Judge Judy's courtroom is not an audition. She doesn't understand when someone starts getting hysterical and dramatic. The plaintiff in this case can't seem to grasp how the whole process works.
Before or after this text?
It was...
Before or after?
Before the text.
Right. Leave me alone. I have other things to do today. Do you take medication?
No, ma'am.
Are you sure you take no medication? Stay in school.
I've been in school. I have 2 degrees,
Stay
ma'am.
in school.
I have 2 degrees.
Well, you didn't get the degree in common sense or smarts.
I did.
No, you didn't. Trust me, you didn't.
In addition to common sense and smarts, we might add manners as well. A Saudi-born Canadian citizen was sentenced to life imprisonment for conspiring to provide material support to ISIS, a designated foreign terrorist organization, resulting in multiple deaths.
I had a normal life back in Canada. I was doing very well for myself, and I decided to give it up. I was happy just coming to a place where we could live in an Islamic state and implement the Sharia.
He pleaded guilty to aiding the Islamic State by working with propagandists who publicized the group's beheading of hostages, including American journalist James Foley. Mohammed Khalifa, 39 years old, grew up in Toronto and left Canada in 2013 for Syria. In early 2014, he was recruited to join ISIS's media department due to his fluency in English and Arabic. Starting in 2016, Khalifa directed various supporter networks that assisted in translating, producing, and distributing propaganda under ISIS media brands to reach Western audiences. He worked within the ISIS media operation until late 2018. Khalifa provided narration and translation for approximately 15 videos created and distributed by ISIS. The productions narrated by Khalifa included 2 of the most influential and exceptionally violent ISIS propaganda videos. While in prison in Syria, Khalifa was interviewed, where he expressed no remorse for his actions. He said he wanted to return to Canada to be with his wife and 3 children, but only on the condition that he would not be tried there. And what is possibly the craziest and most morally unacceptable case in the history of the show? A woman sues a grieving mother for damages to her car. The car was damaged when her son, whom she allowed to drive her car, gave the defendant's daughter the keys to drive it.
Only on the property. I don't care if he drives it on the property, if he drives it on Pluto. Do you honestly believe that you have a case? Do you honestly believe that any fact finder, whether it be a judge or a jury, is going to find your position sympathetic?
Moore is so disturbingly cool about it that it's unsettling. She's convinced that she's in the right and even blames the defendant's deceased daughter for the entire incident.
Instead of saying that, you sue her for the damage to your car. You're an idiot.
The audience applauded when Judge Judy verbally destroyed Moore and ruled in favor of the defendant, granting her the $55,000 she was suing for. Shannon Maureen Conley was just 19, barely out of high school, and a recent convert to Islam when she fell in love with a Tunisian man who claimed to be an Islamic State fighter in Syria. According to a criminal complaint, she wanted to leave her Denver suburb to join him. Over 5 months, the FBI spoke to Conley 9 times, trying to persuade her not to go to Syria, but their efforts were unsuccessful.
Freshman year, she, dressed like any other high school kid. Then all of a sudden junior year she started wearing really, really long dresses and like headscarves.
According to a local news report, her father tipped off the FBI after finding her one-way ticket from Denver to Turkey. Conley was arrested while boarding that flight at Denver International Airport. She subsequently pleaded guilty to a lesser charge and now faces 5 years in prison. When will people learn that you need to ask for permission before taking something from someone else, even if you supposedly take it all the time?
I just use it all the time, and she wasn't home, so I went over there to get the key and went, and the deer just jumped out in front of me.
In yet another case of I'm always able to borrow this thing, 2 sisters find themselves in court over the damage done to a car.
What'd you do with it?
Ate it.
Is that true?
Yes, ma'am, and she even offered me some.
The defendant got into a wreck with her sister's car, crashing into a deer. Since she always borrows the car and has helped her sister occasionally, she thinks she should not be held responsible.
Not having rigor mortis stew, I know.
It did not have rigor mortis.
At least she was nice enough to offer some of the deer she hit with her sister's car. But yes, she still has to pay back that $1,300. Christopher Lee Cornell, 22, of Green Township, Ohio, was sentenced to 30 years in prison for plotting, planning, and attempting an attack on government officials during the State of the Union address in 2015 in the name of ISIS.
One day, a few days later, but I'm thinking all that in one day. You know, there's like most important buildings, because that's like the capital of the U.S. still.
FBI agents arrested him in 2015 after he bought guns and ammunition, which investigators say were intended to be used in an attack on the State of the Union address. He pleaded guilty in 2016 to 3 charges, including the attempted killing of U.S. officials and employees.
A little shy, a little bashful, but talkative. And no, if I hadn't been warned ahead of time, there wasn't really anything about him that would have suggested he was involved in something like that.
Prosecutors said Cornell continued to promote violence from jail, urging others to fight against the disbelievers in America.
You can just tell from the affidavit itself that this guy was communicating with people overseas, not to mention within this country as well. So yeah, there's a lot of leads.
Karen wrecked her sister's car and did not pay her back. Her reasoning gets her nowhere in court. In fact, her words make the judge laugh at such stupidity.
When did you get a DUI?
Back in February. It was February 21st.
And your sister gave you a credit card in order to put you had to pay legal fees?
Yes.
Did it have a zero balance? Wait, she has the records. When you had this conversation with her to hire a lawyer and to get this case going, did she tell you it had a zero balance?
That's what she told me, yes.
Just answer my questions. You took it.
Yep, I sure did.
Well, if someone is making you a gift, why would that be an important thing for her to tell you that it had a zero balance? Can you think of a reason she might say, no, it has a zero balance?
Well, as my sister, I assumed I could trust her.
That's what she assumed. She assumed she could trust you. And at the time, your sister and your mother were living with you. Then you had an argument. And the argument was about a car that your sister had borrowed?
Yes.
That she damaged?
Correct.
How did you damage the car?
I was putting gas into it. I drove it back to the house, and next thing I know it, she's blaming me for damages.
You were putting gas in it? For whom?
Because I borrowed the car from her.
And?
I let her borrow the car to make some errands. She was watching my backup camera that I have on my dashboard, and she wasn't watching the front end of the car, and she hit a rail by the gas station that protects gas pumps.
And when she came home from putting gas in the car, what did she say to you?
She didn't say anything. At first, she walked in with a paint kit to try to patch up.
Oh, so she went to try to fix the car?
Yeah, yes.
Remember that?
I do not.
When she walked in, I asked her what this was. I texted her first and said, "Where are you?" She says, "I have a surprise for you." That was my surprise.
It's embarrassing to be kicked out of the courtroom, especially if you're the second person in your group to be removed.
Okay, sir, you can step out.
That shows you can't listen, and Judge Judy has no time for the likes of you. The defendant, unwilling to listen and audacious enough to talk back to Judge Judy on his way out, tried to storm through doors that wouldn't open for him. Forget embarrassment. This is outright humiliation at this point. As he shrugged his shoulders and asked how to get out, you could hear someone telling him to push, not pull.
Well, I have to tell you something. You
push.
Out.
Take your test to be a judge.
What started as an incredibly upsetting and violent case about a roommate dispute that led to the plaintiff being attacked with boiling water turned incredibly sad by the end.
So it's her apartment, the two of you were living together, and you moved in as a roommate.
Judge Judy quickly figured out that the litigants were high during the incident.
So is it accurate that the three of you were doing that night?
No, Your Honor, it's not.
Is there any reason why you think that this officer would write this?
Yeah, the officer is a fugazi officer.
Despite the plaintiff's bizarre assertion that the police officer who responded to the scene was a fake, Judge Judy soon realized that the plaintiff was in desperate need of care for substance use disorder. Instead of adding insult to injury, the judge took great care to explain why the police did not act on her initial report.
The reason that they didn't take you seriously is because you were so high on drugs that you were in an altered state. Do you understand?
She was too deeply under the influence to support herself. You better get your story straight when you go to court, or the judge will destroy you. This Karen thought she could get away with lying and manipulation, but the judge was way too smart for that.
That was my ex-boyfriend, which is my daughter's father, who I called because I didn't know what to do, because she said she didn't want police, she didn't want anybody, and I agreed with that because I didn't have insurance.
Well, so why wouldn't she want police?
Well, I guess you can ask her that, because she didn't
why
seem
wouldn't
to be
you
very
want police?
sober when she...
Watch this. Why didn't you want police?
That's not true. I had called the police.
Right, so I'm
but she
asking
didn't
you,
call the
why
police.
didn't she want police?
She looked very much either she was drunk or she was on something else.
The police just have it in for you? Why would she sign this? And by the way, I have to tell you, I don't think the signatures look that much alike. Okay, your license has Missouri.
Correct.
Okay, where did this happen? In Florida.
Florida.
How long had you been living in Florida?
For almost a year.
Your Florida address is handwritten here. The paralegals block handwriting. Who knew your address and wrote this down here?
What address does that say? Honestly, I've never seen that.
It
No.
says 1300 Avenue, Orlando, Florida. Who is at
I
1300?
don't know. I live at 1900. Never
What
given
was
her
the
that address.
original address? That somebody had an original address and then that got crossed out and then...
No, 2956 Drive is the address of the complex that I lived in when she hit me.
And then that got crossed out by someone with a different handwriting than her, and a dirt road address got written in?
Currently,
Why
I've
would
been there for
she
1
write
month.
in the address of a dirt road?
I don't know.
The person with a motive to cross out the address and write in the address of a dirt road would be the person who doesn't want to get pinned with the accident. I find your credibility to be extremely suspect.
Is there any way to look at the damage of her car, too? Because the only damage to her car was the right front light.
Stop talking. Because the damage that I saw was severe enough where it's at least the value of the car.
She totaled my car.
Good. I'm glad that there was some deficit to you for an accident that you caused. When you've committed perjury in my courtroom no fewer than 3 times, you have to get out of my courtroom. Get out.
Dr. Noel Howell is probably a legend on the dance floor.
What happened, Mr. Howell? Why did she leave?
The thing is, Judge Judy doesn't have a dance floor, but that didn't stop him from doing an incredibly unfortunate yet now legendary reenactment of the plaintiff's drunken antics while on the job.
Her action became so bizarre, it was hilarious at times, dangerous at times.
His description of her increasingly erratic behavior is endlessly memeable, but his imitation of her dancing and screeching while under the influence is an unforgettable courtroom moment.
And she was like, "Why? Why?"
This entitled Karen tried to ruin her ex-husband, expecting to get away with it, but the judge was not on her side.
Tell me what she did to your car when she got to the house.
She took a metal launch and started beating my doors. I have multiple pictures.
I'd like to see it, please.
And she took out a couple windows. One of the windows being a big bay window.
That's her
I didn't
temper.
break the windows.
Yes, I'd take her back to court and let her have supervised visitation. If a man did that, there would be no question. With that kind of anger problem should not be left unsupervised with a child. Doesn't mean that the same mindset shouldn't work for you. Your motivation is outrageous.
My son was crying in the house.
I know exactly who you are. That's why I took you to court, so that you would understand. I guarantee you also went to his job on Wednesday, and you went back on Thursday, and you didn't find him on Thursday. And now he's annoyed because he's getting calls from his job that you're there.
I didn't do anything. I didn't break the windows. I didn't.
Oh, yes, you did.
Go
Who was
to her
this?
car, so.
Her here, Honor.
Off the car.
Yeah.
I didn't do
Somebody else. Maybe it was her.
And
I would document this, and I would take it back to the family court. Judgment for the plaintiff. We're done.
The Judge Judy courtroom is not the place to advance your stand-up career. You'll only end up looking like a fool.
Database for all your kids. What kind of kids do you have?
I have about 10 kids.
You have 10 children?
Yes, I do.
Danny Gonzalez didn't need the judge's help to look foolish. When the judge expressed surprise at the 21-year-old having 10 children, he responded with a vulgar and somewhat nonsensical joke about the judge's daughter.
How many?
About 4.
About 4? What do you mean about 4? What does that mean, about 4?
About 4 of them, including your daughter. This
Making
might
a
be
joke.
your show, but this is my episode.
No. You don't have, listen to me. You don't have an episode.
Witnesses were called in to tell the truth in the case of an uninsured driver. The judge doesn't have much patience or tolerance for Karen's lies.
What kind of car were you driving, Miss Salazar?
A 2003 Chevy Tahoe.
How much did you pay for it?
$2,500.
At the time of the accident, did you have liability coverage?
I did not.
Which is why we're here. Your insurance would have taken care of.
Correct.
You want to tell me what happened?
Yes, I was out of my commute from work. In this diagram here, I was turning left. I had a green light. She was in the next lane next to me. She had a red light. So she was at a complete stop. I was turning left, and she bolted right in front of me, giving me no reaction time, and we hit right on the side here, not bumper to bumper. Right.
So she was going around you?
She was cutting right in front of me to make the green light.
No, ma'am. I was already in the left-hand lane when she came up behind me. She was actually in front of my vehicle.
Why don't you tell me where your car was?
I was in this lane right here. As I approached the arrow, it turned yellow, and all of a sudden she slammed into the back of me.
It was not in the back of me.
I'm going to dismiss your case if you do it again. Plaintiff's witness, you were in a different car.
Yes.
You got involved because you witnessed the accident.
I was right there.
Who's telling me the truth?
Your Honor, I am the yellow vehicle. The defendant is the blue vehicle. I was
She's lying.
behind
She was
her.
in front of me.
I don't want you to speak. Somebody who drives around without insurance doesn't speak.
Imagine a situation where a man steals a car by force, leading to someone's death. This suspect is named Michael Preston.
Michael took away my daughter, Leslie, and in doing so, he not only destroyed my family, he ripped a large, irreplaceable piece of my heart out.
On November 15th, 2018, outside the Archwood United Church, Michael Preston killed a young mother while stealing her car. Criminals often don't realize the seriousness of their actions, but for the victim's family, it can cause lifelong trauma.
I would like to thank you all for the opportunity to express my feelings. I am not the type of person who finds it easy to express himself through words written or otherwise. But in this case, it is necessary for a father to speak up. Any father would feel and do the same. It is my personal opinion that the convicted Michael Preston, with the evidence presented in this case and with his long history of crimes, is clearly a danger to society. Michael took away my daughter, Leslie, and in doing so, he not only destroyed my family, he ripped a large, irreplaceable piece of my heart out. He stole from her children, Leslie Cruz and Janelle Cruz, her baby chicks, as she lovingly called them, the opportunity to enjoy and experience a full and happy life with their mother. At the same time, he robbed Leslie of the privilege of seeing Leslie and Janelle turn into the amazing adults they will become, and the possibility of seeing them grow into loving and caring parents in their own right. As a daughter, she was the best. As a mother, she was incomparable. As a person, there are not enough words to express her selflessness. So much so that she gave her life protecting her family. This is why I call her my warrior. I ask that you put yourself in my shoes for a minute. I speak to you with my heart in my hands. Please help justice to be served. I ask that you impose a minimum sentence of at least 40 years without privileges so that he does not and cannot hurt any other person. To you, Michael Preston, all I have to say is that you have no idea the amount of damage you have caused my family and I. Your greatest punishment will be to live with the damage you have caused on your conscience. It will not let you live in peace. Again, all I ask is justice be served. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right. This letter is from Ana Perez. That's Leslie de Jesus' aunt. A-N-A? A-N-A. And Perez, P-E-R-E-Z. I want to tell you that I believe in justice, but more so, I believe in divine justice. That no one saves the life of a human being, and one can fall very low if he grew up in adverse and a lacking environment, or by simply wanting easy things. I understand that someone as you has no values, self-respect, or respect for others, has many reasons to not value the lives of others and commit acts of brutality instead of being a good person. My niece, Leslie de Jesus, had a lot of abundance in everything. She's full of love, values, respect for others. And she had many opportunities to take full advantage of her efforts. What were you thinking on November 15th, 2018, when you left your house? Were you already planning what you were going to do, or did it suddenly occur to you? Because that day that you made the decision to commit that act, having the ability to stop, you continued without caring about the consequences. That day, you killed a family. You left some children without their mother, a husband without his wife, a mother without his daughter, sisters without a sister, and aunts and uncles without their nieces. Personally, when I received the call that my niece's life had been taken, I collapsed. Fighting with God filled me with hatred and helplessness because my niece did not deserve this. She did not deserve to have her life taken away the way it was. At that moment, many things came to my mind. When she was little, of her battles, of her smile, and when she became the woman she was. She was very special. She was unique. She was the only one who scolded me to quit smoking. And I always told her not to worry, that I'm an old woman. I would eventually pass away anyway. She answered to me, "Do not say that. You're more than an aunt to me. If you were missing, nobody would fill the emptiness that you'd leave. If something happened to you, I wouldn't know how to live without you." That day, you took away from me so much that every day I look at my phone, waiting for her call. That text message she sent me on November 15th at 11:45 in the morning, so happy because there were only 2 days left for her princess's sweet 15. She was fulfilling her girl's dream, but your acts turned it into a nightmare. You know that day, my joy, I am not the same as I was anymore. There isn't a day that I don't think about it and that my eyes are filled with a million tears. Outside laughing, but inside my soul is missing her laugh, her voice. And now I'm the one who says I don't know how to live without her because nobody can fill the emptiness. I don't feel sorry for you and I won't forgive you. It is up to God to forgive you and have mercy on you.
Mary de Jesus.
Deletrear su nombre.
M.
M.
A. R.
A-R-I.
Y.
M-A-R. Oh, M-A-R-Y. I'm sorry.
Jesus.
De Jesus.
First off, Mike wanted us to maintain his innocence, which we have done, and he still does that to this day. We do want to say, though, that obviously our hearts go out to the Jesus Cruz Maldonado family. We feel terrible for what occurred. There really is no way to lessen their grief. It's a horrible thing they've gone through, and we all acknowledge that. Mike's only position was that he was not the person responsible for that. I do want to say to the court this. The count that he was convicted of is the language is that the cause is approximate result of committing another felony. And I think that's important to remember when sentencing for this reason. The bottom line is that I don't believe whoever did this, that there was any intention to kill anybody, or actually even harm anybody, to be honest with you. There was an attempt to steal a van. It was a car theft. And as in the process of this happening, someone was, I think it was an accident that Leslie was run over. I think that whoever was driving the van was just trying to drive away, was trying to get away. And they happened in the process of that to drive over her. The jury was given the option of finding Mike guilty of purposely causing the death of Leslie, which would have been aggravated, as well as attempting to purposely cause the death of Jesus, which was the count of attempted aggravated. They decided to return a verdict of not guilty on that count. I believe the reason they did that is because the evidence showed that there was no purpose to cause the death of another person doing this. Is a statute that was passed by the Ohio legislature years ago to cover situations like this where there is no purpose to kill somebody, but in the course of committing a serious felony, you end up approximately causing someone else. So that's another way of saying that it was an accident in the process of committing an aggravated robbery. You accidentally person. That's what you have here. So based on that, Your Honor, we ask that you consider sentencing Mike to concurrent time on both of these counts. Now, 15 to life is a sentence that you have to impose. The life sentence is obviously very long. There's a life jail there. Theoretically, Mike could be sentenced to 15 to life and he could spend the rest of his life in prison. That's obviously highly substantial. And it's a serious sentence, and it's something that I think would cover what he's being convicted of here. We're not trying to lessen what happened to Mr. Maldonado. Obviously, he was also victimized here, and basically you can't change what happened here. But and we're not trying to say that he has been victimized or aggrieved. But all we're saying is that a sentence where you make the robbery count concurrent to the count is not less than the seriousness of what happened. It's a substantial sentence, and 15 to life we think would be appropriate and enough for what happened here. All right, Judge. So once again, we do say that we recognize the grief that the Maldonado Cruz family is suffering. Mike has a constitutional right to remain silent. We're going to exercise that. That does not mean that he is in any way not respecting this court or what happened to the family. He has a constitutional right to maintain his innocence, which is what we're doing, and that's all we have.
Whatever the motivation, a crime is still a crime. Considering all the relevant circumstances, the judge imposes fair sentences.
All right, we are going to take a short recess so that your attorneys can explain to you, Mr. Preston, your notice of duties to enroll as a violent offender pursuant to revised code section 2903.41. However, I will explain that you have been convicted of or pled guilty to a qualifying violent offense, offender offense as defined in revised code section 2903.41. Specifically, you are required to enroll in person with the sheriff of the county in which you established residency within 10 days of coming into that county or of occupying a dwelling for more than 3 days in that county. You are required to provide the sheriff certain information, including your social security number, full name, and any aliases you use. You are required to provide your residence address. You are required to provide information regarding the offense of which you were convicted or pled guilty. You are required to provide a description of any scars, tattoos, or other distinguishing marks on your person. You are required to provide the name and address of any place where you are employed or attend school, any driver's license number or commercial driver's license number, or state identification card issued to you. You are also required to provide the license plate number of each vehicle owned or operated by you or registered in your name. The vehicle identification number and description of the vehicle must also be provided to the sheriff. You are required to provide the sheriff fingerprints and palm prints, and the sheriff will also obtain a photograph of you at the time of enrollment. After the date of initial enrollment, you're required to re-enroll annually. You must update and/or amend any of the information that I've just explained to you above that has changed, and provide any additional information requested at the county sheriff's office. You must do this within 10 days of the anniversary of the calendar date on which you initially enrolled. If you change your residence address, you shall provide written notice of that change to the sheriff with whom you most recently enrolled and to the sheriff in the county in which you intend to reside. You are required to comply with all of these requirements that I've just outlined to you for a period of 10 years, unless this court makes another determination. Since your expected residence address is located in Cuyahoga County, you shall enroll in person no later than 10 days after a release or sentencing, which in your case, it would be after your release from prison, with the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office. A failure to enroll or failure to verify your residence at the specified times will result in criminal prosecution. Going to give you an opportunity to discuss this with your counsel if you have any questions about what I've explained to you. And we will go back on the record in about 2 minutes.
Get ready for an astounding revelation as we uncover the seriousness of the offenses committed by Hussein Braveheart.
When you find out that your youngest son was executed in Minneapolis by a serial violent predator.
In 2019, in Hennepin County, Hussein Braveheart took the life of Steve Markey during a carjacking. Losing a child is especially hard for a father, and in this case, Steve's father endured immense pain.
I'm Steve's father, and I'm here to give a victim's impact statement, although I have no words to convey the sense of anguish and loss when you find out that your youngest son was executed in Minneapolis by a serial violent predator. I'll give you a little feeling of how this goes. On June 11th, I'm sitting in my 2019. I'm sitting in my living room, reading, sort of easing my way toward bed. I see a squad car come slowly down the street. I wonder what he's doing. It's a little late for him to be selling tickets to the policeman's ball or whatever. They stop in front of my house. They exit the car. They come to the door and knock. I open the door and begin one of the saddest conversations a parent could ever expect to have. They're very short on details. They won't say how or why or whatever. But the bottom line is, your son was in a violent incident in Minneapolis. And no further details, that's it. They don't have it or they won't offer them to me. So I'm numb, I'm stunned, I don't know how to feel or what to do, but I have to pick up the phone and call family members and tell them that Steve Markey, they'll never see Steve alive again. That poor Steve, a gentle guy who was parked in northeast Minneapolis watching the railroad cars go by, was attacked and senselessly. Okay, so, after a few days, details start to come up, and we find out that he's been attacked by two young men while he was sitting there watching the cars go by. They demanded his car and then shot him because he didn't meet their demands quickly or as efficiently as they might like. They then fled the scene, carjacked another woman's car, robbed a cell phone store, were seen by the police, fled, had a car chase, and were apprehended. Their crime spree did not end with my son. It only began. Okay. It turns out after they Steve, they fled the scene, retrieved a backpack that they had previously hidden, which included a change of clothes in case they didn't want to be recognized, and another set of I don't understand all the legal terminology, and they say it's without premeditation. Well, they may not know who they were going to, but they knew they were going to hurt somebody, and they prepared adequately to escape in case things went wrong. Okay, the first defendant pleads guilty. He's given a sentence of 20-some years, as we think, well, okay, that's appropriate. The second one, Mr. Braveheart, who's 2 weeks short of his birthday, asked to be treated as a juvenile. He's adequately, his defense is adequately supplied per the overseeing of the original Hennepin County Chief Prosecutor, Mary Moriarty. He's defended all the way up to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court finds him to be sentenced as an adult, that his crimes dictate, and his past and his history and all his actions up to this point dictate that he should stand trial as an adult. Okay, up and down, how do you feel? We're relieved the Supreme Court acknowledges what we can clearly see. This person's a serial criminal. He's violent. He attacks people, and now he's someone. So, okay, we figure he'll get the same type of sentence as his co-defendant, and we think that's reasonable. Then after a while, we're notified by our now Hennepin County attorney, formerly Chief Public Defender, Mary Moriarty, that she's not recommending any prison. She's not recommending anything like that. She's giving him a slap on the hand and counseling.
On behalf of the family here in this case, as I said when I started talking to you today, that I am a district court judge here in Hennepin County. The reason that I repeat that is because I want you to know what that means. And what that means is being a district court judge in Hennepin County and in any county, as that I am not a rubber stamp for any negotiation between any parties, nor am I a hammer to bluntly mete out justice on behalf of any family, any victims, any community outrage that there may be. It is my job to objectively apply the facts of any given case to the law that I am presented with, and make a decision based on the law and the facts that are here in front of me. There's been a lot said today about the evidence that has been reviewed by probation, by the courts, by everyone else as we go through this process. I can assure you that my review of the evidence included the appellate record, treatment records, pre-sentence report, complaint, statements from individuals, emails, transcripts of statements made by Mr. Braveheart, Mr. Osman, Mr. Braveheart's mother in the juvenile proceedings, expert reports written by Dr. Garrity, both for the juvenile case and a subsequent one that was done for this case. Also, the treatment summaries in this case, the memos that were written by the parties, and various studies, some of which I'm already familiar with, relating to brain development. For those of you who don't know me and didn't take 5 seconds to Google me before these proceedings began, I don't like to spend a lot of time talking at these sentencing hearings, but this one certainly requires more detail and more information. So, prior to becoming a lawyer, I was a probation officer for 10 years. And what that means is that I spent a lot of time reviewing the same kind of documents that are presented in this case, supervising individuals in the community who have been placed on probation, writing pre-sentence reports myself. My career as a lawyer included representing the State Department of Human Services in the mental health facilities, which also involved reviewing treatment summaries, staff reports, discharge summaries, treatment records. Before I was appointed as a judge, I was a prosecutor in the Hennepin County Attorney's Office in the Adult Prosecution Division, dealing with cases like this. I don't tell you that because I want to make this case about me. I tell you that because I want you to understand that when I review cases, I bring all of that with me, which includes the knowledge of what information is contained in these reports and how important it is to read the entire reports and all the documents that are included. It also means that over the years, I have already been exposed to a number of the theories regarding brain development and how it affects juveniles as well as adults who are in the criminal justice system. I will tell you that our system favors negotiations. There is no way that we could do all the work that we do in Hennepin County or anywhere else in this court system without negotiated sentences. We need negotiated sentences for the system to work. And I know we've all, lawyers, judges, have sometimes had to hold our nose at some of the negotiations that we've had for the benefit of the system to get things moving. But those negotiations also followed the law. In this case, as you've heard, the negotiation that is being proposed, the presumptive sentence here is a 261-month commitment to the Commissioner of Corrections. The negotiation would call for, rather than that sentence be served in custody, that the defendant be placed on probation for a period of 5 years, with that time, as we say, hanging over his head as incentive for him to follow through with any treatment that we want him to do.
If you're going to claim you didn't steal a purse, it's probably best not to tell the judge what was and wasn't in the purse. And you definitely did not steal.
What was in your wallet?
It was $50.
As the plaintiff lists the items in the purse in question, one of the accused defendants insists there was no earpiece. If only every case were this easy to prove.
There was no earpiece in her mouth.
I love it.
Before they can even realize what happened, Judge Judy has ruled against them, and the two become a laughing stock in front of millions. We don't know if this was the shortest case ever featured on the show, but it has to be one of the shortest.
Judging for the plaintiff for the amount of $500. That's what I think it's worth, madam. Goodbye.
There's always debate about whether the cases we see in televised courtroom dramas are real.
He was breaking one of the televisions. It fell on your cat and killed it.
Yes.
Yes. I thought you were there with 6 people.
No, they went to go rent a movie from the Red Box.
There was no fight and, thankfully, no dead cat. While it might make us question the validity of the case, the defendant confirmed that Judge Judy is indeed intimidating in real life. Big thanks to our viewers for joining the courtroom journey with us. Your interest in the stories of justice is what keeps our channel alive.